married, we don't usually think about what the worst that this person can give us. We got in and we enjoyed the beauty and the veil and the wedding dress is just so beautiful. We were so taken that we just can't wait to say, I do. Well, we should have said, I will, because, I will love you for better, for worse, for poor, for rich, and that sort of thing. But, I'm not sure what the worst you've gone through in your marriage. But whatever it was, whatever, come what may, we promise for that on the day of marriage. And so I think arranged marriage seems to me to be the most biblical way of doing this sort of thing, because you tell these two people, look, you got to learn to love one another, and that's it. What is courting? Well, courting is the communication without sex in view process of finding out whether a person of the opposite sex is a likely person to develop a lifelong relationship with you in marriage. So it's a process of, it's a communication process without any sexual string in view. It's a process of talking, right? You look at a girl and you like her, you take her away, give her a meat pie, and you share your problems with her, right? That's what you do. Usually you find out, and then eventually, see, that's why I said you should leave sex off the picture in that courtship when you're communicating, because then you'd learn to think with your head. Because once you start, start in the physical side of your relationship, you're not thinking with your head anymore. You're thinking with your emotions. And that's always dangerous. It's always bound to mislead you, because your emotion can always run higher than your reasoning. And then your reasoning is shaped by your emotion. Now, in the Tongan cultural way, courtship is called faitohi, or writing a letter, right? You may have heard of this. And this is when the family of the man approach the family of the possible wife-to-be with a proposal for marriage. And it's a huge occasion, all the family of the guy will bring all their koloa and the pig and all those other things. It's a great occasion. So it's almost like engagement in the Palangi culture. Now, if you're engaged, it doesn't mean you sleep together, but see, in the Tongan way of doing things seems to me to be closer to the biblical way. Because, see, when they do the faitohi, the proposal, if the woman's family, if the bride-to-be's family accepted, then they would agree on they would determine a wedding day straight away. And between that day and the wedding day, the girl stays in their parents' house. And the bridegroom-to-be would always go to talk to the girl in the parents' house until the wedding. And so this is the Tongan way, and I believe it seems to me to be far more biblical. You see, danger always comes in because you meet somewhere else in the movies or some hotel somewhere, and it doesn't help. So that's why you end up impregnating the girl before marriage. And as I said, you should immediately get married. Is it wrong to be talking to multiple people at once? Yes. It is the best preparation for adultery and extramarital affair in marriage. If you take out more than one girl during dating, you're most likely bound to do the same in marriage. Any person who does that during dating is giving you God's signal that they're not the right persons for marriage. And it's also like the idea of sleeping around before marriage. You know how the people say you need an experience, sexual experience? No. That's a lie, because sleeping around before marriage is the best preparation to sleeping around during marriage. So it's not a good preparation for marriage. If you've done it, ask for forgiveness and don't give it as an advice. You see, the whole thing works, don't you think? Sex works. That's why you are here. It works for our parents, so why wouldn't it work for you? So leave it till then. In marriage you have a lifetime to enjoy it. Is being lonely a sin? Well, it was the only thing that was no good in creation, Genesis 2:18. But you see, the problem of loneliness, I don't think it's a sin. I think it's usually due to one's personality. See, my wife always always tells our boys, our three boys, to be a friend, you have to be a friend. See, you have to be ready to be a friend, to be out there, and loving a person is risky. It would have been best for you if you come into a relationship without without thinking that you will be hurt in this relationship. You might as well stay away from relationship, because once you are in a loving relationship, there is bound to be some sacrifices that needs to be done. You got to do away with your single life. The other person must do away with their single life. When I was single, my Faikava friends can come in any time and say, let's go Faikava, and I would just go. And then when I got married, I used to make that mistake of still listening to my Faikava friends, not realizing that I should now listen to my wife. I should say to my wife, would I be able to go Faikava with my friends? And if my wife says no, well, so be it. Because my wife is now taking the priority in my relationship. My wife, your wife, should be closer to you than your mom and your sisters. I know of a man who's been married here for a long time and has left his wife to go and stay with his mom and his sisters because he thinks that his godly duty. But that's not his godly duty. He was supposed to leave his parents when he got married and cling to his wife. See, this is what God says in his word. And therefore, but anyway, is being lonely a sin? I don't think so. I think you need to look into your personality. You need to pray that God will bring you friends. And if you have Jesus, you can always talk to Jesus as a friend. Read his word, say your prayers, talk to Jesus as a real friend. And of course, as a Tongan, you should be able to call your cousins, your relatives, but be a friend. Be ready to be a friend. And to be a friend, you got to have something in common with the other person. That's how to be a friend. The idea of you talk to them and they say to you, oh, you too, you had that experience as well. That's real friendship. When you have.
Brad, sorry, can I like just pull you before you leave? Kind of the whole Doba business.
Oh yeah.
Is that a Christian view? Like is that like not going to say biblical, but would you say Christians should be entertaining that, like for people who's Doba and then the men that
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, if it's a faikava of some married men, I don't think there is a need for a Doba there. But if there is some unmarried, say with my boys, I would like to take them to a Doa because it's not just for the sake of Doa. I want to take them faikava so that they can have a chance to talk to a girl. But yeah, I mean, I myself, it's not a sin to have a Doa in a faikava. I think it's a real test for us married people. I myself, when I go faikava and there is a Doa, I make a practice to just turn my back. And I can be rude, of course, but it's practically better for me. I don't spend a lot of time talking. I don't take Doa around. If I do, there has to be more than 2 other people in the car with me. If I'm taking the Doa, right? I need 15, but I can't fit all of them in the car to take, but just to hold on to me because I'm a sinful man. and any faifekau don't. That's the most untrustworthy people to take the Doa around, okay? Don't give it to us because I won't recommend it. I won't do it. Yes, and I know that I think the problem is with the married men. It's the married men who are going around looking for Doa, and when they go to Faikava and there is no Doa and they start talking because they're disappointed. Usually the young men that I know, we drink out at Fofoanga. If there's no Doa, we just make fun about it and we keep going. But so from time to time, I talk with these young men at 4. I have 4 other young guys in their 20s, 3 others with my son, that I call them my sons because I take them around in my whaikawa. But I tell them, look for a young girl so that we can go there. I can go and ask the parents to have whaikawa so that you can talk to the girl. But so far we've been unsuccessful here in Sydney. Maybe we look around in Melbourne and maybe Brisbane. But that's a good question. Any other questions? I'm almost
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm almost done, and I'm not sure how much time I have, but I'm willing. If you have something to leave to go to, please feel free to leave. But I'm almost done.
Are you in a rush, Martha, to go anywhere?
Not at all. This is my day of rest. Because
Can you guys clap if you want to just keep going?
Okay.
Give us a thumbs up or a clap because it's definitely
Okay. Feel free to go if you have to go. But this is a topic that I haven't talked about this topic for a very long time, and I'm very thankful that you raised the issue because I haven't spoken about this even with my young people and my youth group, but I probably need to have this talk with them again. But anyway, let's go back to the questions and keep your questions coming, right? This is a good thing that you stop me and ask questions. What are the red flags in a relationship? Red flags? Well, when the other person is telling lies, I would suggest that that's a red flag. That's either you need help or you need to get out of the relationship, because if you are in a boy-girl relationship and they're telling you lies, even small fibbies, they can never be trusted. If they can't be trusted while you're dating, imagine what will happen when you get married to them. It'll be worse. So trustworthiness, faithfulness is the most important character in marriage. So you should have that even in your dating. So when the person starts telling you little things that they don't do, it's a sure sign that this person can't be trusted, right? In a serious long-term relationship like marriage. I looked it up last night, and there are many websites, psychological websites, that gives you some helpful hint. Don't go to the popular magazine websites because I don't think they have it, but go to the psychologist, maybe they can help you. But for me, I'm coming in from a biblical viewpoint. Truthfulness, reliability, trustworthiness, faithfulness, to me that's the most important thing to have in a relationship and even in a marriage. How to maintain purity in a relationship if you are not yet married? As I said, I have 4 things to say. Always keep the door open if the two of you are alone in a room, and don't use a car as a room, right? That's also a danger. The car was made to drive you from point A to point B. Once you get to point B, get out of the car. Don't just sit in the car. So as I said, this is why don't drive them to a park or something. If they drive you to a park, you get out and run, right? They should drive you to the parents. If you're a girl, the boys should drive you back home to your parents' house. If you live in a flat, well, make sure, as I said, don't go into the room. Just talk in the lounge or something, and then quickly get out. But yeah, and then secondly, keep your conversations well away from any sexual terms, connotations, references, even jokes. I know that in the Tongan culture we make jokes, but I don't make jokes about sex. And if somebody is joking to you about sexual things, you should tell them to stop. They're not joking. Let me say to you, when people joke about sex, they're serious. They just don't know how to say it to you directly. That's why they're joking about it. So just tell them that you get serious and go get a life or something. Any sex talk before marriage seems to me, talking about sexual intercourse and that sort of thing, it's inappropriate. If you want to keep your relationship pure while you're still dating, leave it until you get married. Then you can talk to each other, and as I said, you have a lifetime to practice the thing, to experience it. And you know, the older you get, as they say, the more enjoyable it is. Thirdly, stay away from arousal. You know, arousal is things like touching each other, you know, in places that you know exactly what I mean. Places that you shouldn't touch, right? Places that cause sexual arousal. Even things like passionate kissing. Oral sex is too far, okay? Some people are saying no, but oral sex is, you're already doing it in your heart, and therefore you should get married quickly, right? Before it goes worst. And lastly, if this advice comes a bit too late, you should be planning your wedding for the next week. I mean, if this is too late, you're already into it, and you feel like you can't stop yourself in going all the way, please, please, please come to me, or go to Hai, and the husband is a whaifekau, or go see the minister. You should get married next week. There's no need to be a celebration, big celebration. Just get married. Marriage is pure in God's sight. You see, because sexual. Sorry, yeah.
Reverend, I'm sorry, just a question.
Yeah.
How important is for those that are in that are married? How important is it to have godly counsel?
It's very important. It's very important to have godly counsel. There was one point in time in my marriage we had to go counseling. I tell you, mine was not a perfect marriage. We had signed the divorce paper, only by God's grace we revoked it. I went to see some earthly counselors who were Christian, and yes, they were helpful. But let me say, you know, sometimes it's just very hard when you're not ready to change. See, if you go for counseling in marriage, you got to open your heart to change. And now we're doing counseling. You know, I'm currently counseling 2 couples, my wife and I. I always do it with my wife, because usually it's the wife who usually comes for help. See, we guys are very arrogant. We don't think there's a problem. And you know, this is why, you know, when the woman says to you guys that there's a problem, let me tell you to listen, because there's a real problem. When the wife leaves the relationship, that means that, you know, she has been saying to you all along for a very long time, there's a problem, you never listen. And we have this tendency in us guys to minimize the problem. Oh, we say, no, it wasn't a big thing, you know. I was just chatting on Facebook to another woman, but, you know, we weren't saying anything bad. No, it was a real thing, you know. If your wife thinks that was a real problem, you better listen, right? And so, yes, it is very, very helpful to go for godly counseling. And I think all marriages need counseling at some point. And you know, you see, this is the thing with us Tongan ministers. We look unapproachable, isn't it? You know, if you're in a Tongan church and you have problems, your minister is not the first person for you to think of going to talk about your problem, because they will probably say to you, look, go away and fix it. You know, I don't have a problem. It's if I'm the Superman, spiritual man, I don't have a problem, you know. They live in an unrealistic world, let me say. It's very sad, because I only do this as a Christian. You know, Jesus has done a lot, and a lot of people were praying for me. I found when we went through this, you know, these difficult, tough times in our marriage, so many Christian friends were praying for us. There was this girl who came to me at that point in time and said, look, I'm going to fast for 7 days, fast and pray for your marriage to be restored. And you know, I didn't think seriously about it at the time, but you know, it will be good to ask friends to pray for you if you have problems in your marriage. You know, sometimes we're tempted to think that we're the only one who have problems in our marriage. Don't you think that's one of the lies of the evil one? They say, look at the whaifekau, he's perfect, isn't he? Your marriage should be like them. But you see, you don't really know. You haven't spoken to my wife about what the whaifekau is like, you see. But we all have problems. We all have problems. And you know how it's funny in the tongue and sense, they always, if you're not married, they keep asking, oh, when you get married, when are you getting married, when are you getting married? And then once you get married, they don't ask you how the marriage is going. You know what I mean? They don't say, how's it going? You're having fights? You're fighting? Because you see, this is the thing that happens. You see, while you are dating, you kind of avoid each other and you have this nice way of making sure that you don't have a fight. And then after the wedding, then you have to live with this person, isn't it? And you find that they're as sinful as you are. And therefore, they want you to, they come into the marriage because they want you to give them happiness, and you come in, you want her to give you happiness. It's going to be conflict all the way through till the end. And yes, so I do it, but I should ask you, if you go for counseling, just make sure that you're ready to change. Be ready to change, because it'll be useless if you go to counseling just for the sake of counseling. Yep, good. So just stop me if you have any more questions. But anyway, yep. Go ahead. Questions? Any questions? Okay. So yeah, I was giving advice on how to maintain purity in a relationship if you're not yet married. Yes, as I said, if you're already doing arousal and foreplay, you know what I mean. If you're married, foreplay involves those things like touching and kissing, passionately kissing, that sort of thing. God's intention was for foreplay to be the kind of play before sexual intimacy. So this is why I would advise you, and even if your sons and daughters are dating, to talk to them about that. There is a good instruction in Colossians 2:21. It's an instruction about something else, but I think we can apply it to purity here, sexual purity, maintaining sexual purity. And it says, don't handle, don't taste, don't touch. And I think if you don't handle, don't taste, don't touch, it'll probably help you. So, but why is purity important, both in relationship and no relationship? This is the next question. As I said to you before, it is our Maker's instruction for how the tool, that is sex, is to be used. The trouble, of course, is that we almost always think that we know best, and especially with sex, we know best how to use this tool. And so we take it and we start abusing it. And we keep abusing it until we realize that there's a problem. Then we look around. If we're not yet destroyed by our abusing of it, we look around for help. And it is my prayer that God will provide you some help. You see, because God creates sex to be like a glue that sticks together things, right? Especially if you're a woman. If you're a woman, sexual intimacy deeply affects your soul. And this is why I don't advise people to stay together in order to find out before marriage. I think it's worse for the woman. And I read a book a few years, I can't remember the name of it, but it was written in America about that kind of relationship where people tend to think, oh, let's stay together for a year or two to find out whether we are compatible. You see, at the end of it, usually the guy would leave the woman for another woman, and the woman is devastated. Because you see, the woman, as a woman, your sexual intimacy was meant to be given meaningfully to your husband, to just one person. And they were meant to give them to you. And because you're thinking, as I say, outside of marriage, you like this man, but you just don't seem to get hold of him. And then you start thinking, maybe if you sleep with him, you can get him. That's not on. If you give yourself to him sexually, for him, that's the end of the road. See, for you, it's a mean to an end. For the guy, well, I've conquered this fortress. I'm now going to move on to find another fortress to conquer. And a lot of, this is how we guys are wired, and you girls should know that this is what's happening in our brain. We hardly think about anything else than sex, right? And so it's very, very dangerous. So that's why you should, purity is very important, because it was not meant to be abused. It's meant to be used in a godly way, to embody your commitment to this person, to live with them till death do you apart. So yes, you got to, I hope you do, if you're a single woman, you now understand this is how your man's mind work, right? It doesn't really work really, but this is how they think about you. They keep thinking about sex, nothing much, nothing else in their brain. So you have to stay away from those things that I mentioned before. This is why arousal is not good for the guy. The guy, because it's so superficial, will always rush to the ultimate thing. But so if you're a girl, you should not encourage your guy towards physicality, the physicality of your relationship. What can we Christians do about all the sex trafficking in the world today? Well, firstly, I think more important than anything else is to keep your sexual purity, and inform the legal authorities if you know of anything. If you know people are doing it, you should inform legal authorities, and pray that the Lord will rescue people from that, because I've heard testimonies of people in sex trafficking. It's not a good thing at all. If I'm a single parent, how can I talk to my kids about the importance of waiting for marriage? As I say, when I spoke with my boys, I said to them, do you know how you were here, how you came to be? Then I said, I explained the process. Mum and I had this thing, and I showed, I point to certain parts in their body, the genitals. I talk to them normally. And you should always pray, because sometimes the kids would be a little bit hesitant and discreet about it, but you should be open. You should be open. 11 years old. Don't think that they won't understand. No, they're already into it. See, they're already doing something behind your back. So yes, pray that the Lord would encourage you to have that courage. My parents, and probably your parents too, they didn't talk to us about this because they think we will find out. And, it wasn't good for me, and probably for some of you. And so we need to rescue. Do it out of love, say to your kids, look, I really love you. I made so many mistakes in this area of sex. And then explain, I don't want you to go through these mistakes, and therefore this is why I want to do this. I want to tell you this. Maybe read some of the passages from the Bible, like Proverbs chapter 5 that I read before, or Song of Songs chapter 4, just to show them that this is quite normal for God to talk about breast and sex and intimacy in marriage, and keeping your wife for yourself, and that sort of thing. When should you introduce your significant other to the family? Well, when you're ready, when you think that you will be married to this person. So if you're serious about this person, and if you are already deciding on a wedding date, then you should then introduce the person to your family, right? It's when you are already making sure of the prospect of marriage. Don't do it because this is what we tell our son. Look, we don't want you to come introduce us any girls that you don't think you're going to get married to. So he knows what he's doing, so he's not doing it. Leave it till you're quite certain about wedding dates and stuff. What is the difference in biblical and worldly relationships? I think, as I said, dating in the Christian and biblical sense is geared towards marriage. So I always say to my boys, look, you should never do dating until you're ready to be married next month or next week. So if you're ready to get married next week, then you can date. That is, you already have a job so that you can support this person. You're already thinking of maybe getting your own unit, a flat or something. You're already thinking about providing for this person. So when you are ready to be married like that, then you can start dating. In the world, in the world, this is not on. I think young boys and girls are just out to experiment. They're so exposed to this culture of pornography that they really want to experiment with their sexual intimacy. And in the Palangi culture, I can see that at 16, 17, 18, all they're doing is just experimenting. They don't settle down until when they're maybe 30, 40, and they've gotten through maybe 60 or 70 men, and that's why, or 70 women, and that's why it's very hard for especially Palangi women to be committed long term to Tongans. Seems to me it's totally different worldview. See, for us, for us Tongan men, usually we don't do that. We don't sleep around. People who do it, need to be ashamed of that, because it's not a good thing. We are a small island culture. Only here overseas that we now live in a very broad and widespread sort of culture that sometimes our children feel free to sleep around, but still in our Tongan culture we should speak against it. I know some parents who are so silly to start being proud of their son who is impregnating several girls, but I think they're stupid parents. They're just arrogant. They don't see what their sons are doing, or what their son is doing is destroying a person who is going to get married to another man in the future. And in dating, as a Christian, you are meant to be, if you're really loving this other person like Christ, you're meant to be preparing the other person as a wife or a husband for another person. You're not coming into dating. Yes, of course, you want to get married to this person, but you, in your mind, you say, look, if this person was to marry another person, or if somebody else is preparing my wife, what would I want them to do to this person? And then you start doing it to this person. So always in your head, be other person centered. That is, always think, look, I'm preparing this person for another person. And even if in the end the other person is you, all for good. So yeah, there's in the world, they would encourage you to sleep around. They would encourage you to stay together for compatibility. But biblically, no. I encourage you to be married young, because, and then of course, you can do family planning. There are so many ways of doing it now, and having kids till a little bit later. You can enjoy the early times of. So encourage your kids to be married early, and then they can have kids when they're 25 or something, or before they're 30, because after 30, the female's body is getting old, and a lot of the hormones that were there when she was young to support pregnancy is no longer there, and therefore they can still be pregnant at 30 and even 40, but it's not good for the woman, right? So yeah, there's a vast difference between biblical and worldly relationships. My question, is there a reason why breakups happen? Well, yes, it's due to hardness of heart, says Jesus. Unforgiveness, unloving, what they call the snowballing. Snowballing is when all the little things add up and then they become a big thing. That is because there was no real forgiveness. When you're ready to forgive and forget, and let me tell you, there is no magical formula for keeping a marriage long term, as we've done with those people who are staying married for a long term. It's just forgiveness. Just Jesus is forgiveness. I don't know how non-Christians do theirs, but I know that some non-Christian marriage also happy. But something's got to give. There was a title of a movie some time ago. Something's got to give. But in a Christian marriage, both of us has got to give. We got to give in. We got to sacrifice a few things in order to be able to enjoy being the two of us. And we, by the grace of God, now we are going through a very good time, and we are helping our marriages in our church. I'm a pastor of the Tongan Evangelical Wesleyan Church here in Sydney, and we have a men's fellowship every Saturday evening where I give advice to my men, to the men in our church, on how to live with their wives. And surprisingly, even the 60-year-olds, they come to me and said, well, we never thought about this before. Things like, I said to them, look, there is no, in the Bible, it doesn't say the woman is to do the cooking and do the washing, and the husband is to go to the bush or the plantation, go working. It doesn't say in the Bible. It doesn't say if you're married, it's meant to be 50-50%. So you contribute 50 as the husband and the wife contribute 50. No, that's the formula for disaster. You see, for example, if we're sleeping upstairs, my wife, and then I heard the thief downstairs. So imagine me saying to my wife, saying, look, I've done my 50 today, now it's your 50. You go down and look at the thief, go down and confront the thief downstairs. See, it just doesn't work. You see, in a Christian marriage, we lead our families like Christ. And how did Christ lead his family? Well, he took the basin and washed their feet, the feet of the disciples. And that if you are a husband, you need to serve your wife and your kids. And serving means doing the washing, doing the dishes, doing the cooking, doing the bed. I do everything. I even iron my wife's clothes. See, I iron my own clothes. There's no manual in the Bible for all these things. See, a funny story I tell you, when I went to see a Tautai and teach there, I didn't see any husband doing the washing. And then I thought to myself, well, how about I do the washing and I go out in public when they're all looking and hang my washing when everyone was looking. And then eventually I found out from the wives that the husband had been doing the washing secretly because they were ashamed to be found out doing the washing because they thought Tongan men don't do the washing, don't do the laundry. So let me encourage you, if you're a husband who is listening to this, you got to be like Christ. You've got to serve your family like Christ. You've got to sacrifice all your rights, everything, your righteousness. If you have a fight and you were in the right, well, mate, just let go of it and say, look, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I'm ready to continue living with you. If so, does the Bible means it's a sign we shouldn't go back? So I was talking about breakups. Well, the Bible says if you're divorced and remarry, or your ex is remarried, so if you're both divorced and you're both remarried, and then you divorce again, you can't go back to each other, right? That's what the Bible says. So, but if breakup is in a relationship, maybe it's a sure sign that the other person's not the one. Because once you break up, there must have been some problems that insurmountable, you can't resolve it. Yet, if it is a separation in marriage, whatever its cause, there is still a chance to repent of any sins that might have caused the separation, and then to be reunited to your spouse. As I said, our God is a God who lived with an unfaithful wife, and yet there was true repentance in Israel, and then the husband, God, restores the wife, the unfaithful wife, Israel. And so, going back to my marriage, I'm really glad that my God and your God, the God of the Bible, is a God who knows how to live with an unfaithful spouse. You can always go back to him for strength, for forgiveness. But of course, as I said, any sins in marriage or in relationship need to be repented of. I finished now, and I'll go back to you and see if there are any comments and questions.
Yeah, there's a question there that is asking, how can you parent your children if your partner is an unbeliever?
How can you yeah, of course, that makes it really difficult. Now, if you are a parent, a Christian parent, our God believes in punishment, even giving our children a smack. But let me say to you,